Welcome to Lord Beer Me Strength.
This is the podcast where we ask God to beer us some strength.
And then we use that strength to pray without ceasing, talk about beer, and digest the issues.
And sometimes we quote The Office.
For your edification and our enjoyment.
Because we have freedom in Christ.
You're Lisa.
And you're Marge.
Now Lord, beer us strength.
Nailed it. First time.
First try.
Yeah. So,
we actually did. That was actually the first try.
well, for the intro, not the high five.
Yeah.
The high five took some work. But it's alright.
Pops is really happy to be here.
Mm-hmm. About you, Marge? How are you doing?
I'm okay.
Yeah?
I'm good, actually.
Yeah. You slept well?
Uh-huh.
Okay. That helps. You don't know. You were unconscious. Yeah.
It's true.
Hard
I
to
was
know.
there, but
Yeah.
I wasn't. Anyway, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay. I too slept well for the most part.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
How was your last Tuesday?
My last Tuesday? You mean yesterday?
Yes.
Yes. It was fine. I had to work. I was covered in peach fuzz for most of it.
Why's that?
Because peaches are nasty.
Peach what?
Peach fuzz.
Peach fuzz.
Uh-huh. So, I showered and now I'm here.
It's a great story.
Yeah. I know. What are we drinking today? What have
Vodka.
you got over there? Vodka. Yes, that's what this clear
It's
liquid
non-alcoholic vodka.
just known as water. Water from the tap.
Water.
Washington water. Courtesy of your father. Did your dad have a hand in this quality
Yeah,
water?
he made it
Mm-hmm.
himself.
I can taste the hard work. Blood, sweat, and tears. It's nice and cold. It's cold and wet. And that's about it.
Is water wet?
Yes, we talked about this. This was on the science episode.
Uh-huh.
Water is wet because of cohesion.
Cohesion.
Cohesion. Yes, it's a thing. I said it right. Don't look at me like that.
There's a difference between someone saying, like, St. Clair and St. Clair.
Oh,
And
yes.
it's like cohesion and cohesion.
Yes, where the accent is placed.
The emphasis is
Makes
on the
all the
wrong
difference.
syllable.
Okay, but as we've established on this podcast, I like to do things like that. To keep you on your toes, right?
My doctor said to get off my toes because it was ruining my legs.
And yeah, that'll affect your back and stuff too. So
Oh, that's
you don't
good.
want to mess with that.
Oh.
I've had that.
Really?
Yeah, it's rough.
Oh.
So stop it.
Okay.
So I guess you can't hang out with me anymore because I keep you on your toes.
We have friendship rings now.
Yeah, we do. We match because we're cool like that. Uh-huh.
But our friendship!
It's over. Give it back. I'm sorry. Doctor says it's bad for you. No, can't argue with that.
What are we talking about today?
We're talking about mental health today, Marge.
Mental health.
Yes, it's the latest in our series that we're doing. Fill in the blank is not a bad word. Yeah.
Is mental health one word?
No, it is 2 words. It might be hyphenated if you're using it to describe another word.
Mm-hmm.
But in this instance, it is not. It's the thing we are discussing.
We could just not even hyphenate it and just like smush it together. It's like mental health.
Yeah, well, yeah. Or misplace the accent mental health.
Mental health is not a bad word.
No, it's a good word. And may have had some negative connotations in some aspects of our lives.
Mm-hmm.
Church sometimes.
Yeah.
Churches can sometimes give the indication that pursuing mental health or making it an issue in your life is frowned upon. Or that if you're saved, Jesus is all you need. Jesus is the only counselor you need. I've been told that.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And so, like, pursuing somebody, especially a non-Christian professional for mental health issues,
Mm-hmm.
is frowned upon a lot of times. So, hence the negative connotations
Yeah.
that we're going to deconstruct.
Pa-pow!
That's what we're all about today.
Okay. Great.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
excited.
Yeah, we actually brought a professional.
We have somebody with us today
Yeah.
who can speak to this issue.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, today on the podcast we have a special guest who can speak to mental health a little bit and might have impacted her life greatly growing up and has a lot to say about how the church has treated her mental health journey and just her as a person. And yeah, let me be the first to introduce Jordan Jenkins to the podcast.
Clap.
Thank you.
Yeah, welcome,
Thank
Jordan.
you so much. I am so honored to be here.
Yeah.
We're honored to have you.
So how do you know us?
Well, I am Mallory's older sister.
That's
Mhm.
true.
How much older than Mallory are you?
I am
15 years.
Oh, wow, you look great.
Thank you.
You're almost as old as me.
No, a bit less than that. Is it like 3.5? It's.
You were born in 93, I was in 96.
You know how I keep track of how old you are, Jordan?
How?
This is going to ruin how we know each other a little bit. I
Oh.
remember I pierced your ears when you were 17.
Oh, yes, you did.
Yeah. I was pregnant with Luke.
Oh,
So
okay.
he's turning 12.
Aww.
That means you're 17 plus 12.
Aw.
Boom,
I'm,
math.
I am so happy you remembered. Because
Okay.
I was going to bring that up at some point.
Were you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lisa pierced my ears. She did a fantastic job.
Yeah, there's
Perfect
still
Still have
centers.
those holes?
So centered.
Rocking
yeah.
those
Mhm.
earring holes?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right.
It was great.
That's some of my finest work.
Is that how you guys bonded?
Absolutely. Yes.
Right. Yeah. That was
Yeah.
it. That one moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys knew each other from church.
We did.
Yeah.
Yeah. We both were on worship team at the same time
Mm-hmm.
at some point.
Yeah,
Oh,
there
yeah.
for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we all did that, didn't we?
Yes,
have.
we all
Served.
dabbled in that
Served our time.
at
Yeah.
some point. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Anyway, yeah, this is my sister. So, yeah, can you tell us a bit about maybe your traumatic past?
I would be on. I'd
Jump
be
right
happy
in.
to. Yes. What else should we talk about?
What is wrong
Yeah.
with you?
We might as well.
Who do you think you are?
How dare you? We'll be asking none of those questions. I'm sorry.
Well, I guess in true Lord Bear Me strength fashion, I will begin by saying I was born at a very young age
Good.
Yes.
Nice.
in the year of 93. Yeah.
Okay.
The Great Flood of 93.
Oh, yeah.
Ironic that my parents named me Jordan, because when it's used in church, it's typically in
River
reference to the River Jordan, but
Huh.
it was purely coincidence, I believe.
I've heard
to my
Jordan
knowledge.
River, but
Never
whatever.
made that
Hmm?
distinction.
What's
I've
that?
heard Jordan River, but whatever.
Oh, okay. Well,
It's
Yeah.
again the emphasis thing.
anyway, my name is Jordan, for whatever reason. And, yes, I was born in 93.
Because mom
And
liked the name,
She
probably.
did like the name,
Because
yeah.
otherwise dad would have named you like Emily or something stupid. Sorry, Emily's. I'm so sorry.
Wow.
I think I was supposed to be Emily if I was a girl, Michael if I was a boy,
Yeah.
but I was
I
a
was
girl.
supposed to be like
and-
Rebecca or like Sarah or something stupid. Like,
Oh, I may have been Rebecca too. Then.
You are going to have to cut all of this out.
I'm so sorry.
Wow.
Mallory's just particular about
I
it.
just think it's like they're just different names. Like Mallory's way more unique than Sarah.
There are more common names, yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm. Anyway,
Or Lisa. Like
Do you know how many Lisas there are? And they're all like 10 years older than me.
I know many Lisas, yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I was really at the tail end of the Lisa
Mhm.
fad.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think now there's they're going back to that, like those
Oh, yeah.
older generation names
that
are now.
era is really
Yeah.
coming in strong.
Like we have
Eugenia.
Mabel's again, and
Mhm.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's cool.
Clarence.
Worth.
I haven't met a Clarence, but.
Ew.
So shall I continue?
Nah. Go ahead.
Go for it.
You were born at a very young age.
I was, yes, yeah. And grew up in a household with 2 parents, 2 sisters, both younger than me, Mallory and Quinn. And
We don't talk about Quinn.
okay,
No, no, no. We don't
I still haven't seen that
talk
movie.
about Quinn.
That's a movie?
Though we don't talk about Bruno. Is that a
It's
song?
Never heard of
It's a
it.
song.
Encanto.
I keep hearing
Huh.
references to it.
No idea.
I guess
It's because
I need
your
to.
children are too old
Yeah.
and you have no
I
soul.
quit watching Disney movies.
Just cold turkey.
Yeah. Marvel movies also. There's too many. I don't have the energy to keep
Mm,
up.
Yeah, the quality has declined.
It's dropped a little
Yeah.
bit. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
definitely quantity over quality,
Mhm.
I would say.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd agree.
Anyway.
Yes, I was born in Creve Coeur, Missouri. Grew up in Washington.
Social.
I'm sorry.
Social.
I'll keep that to myself, but
mother's maiden name.
yeah.
Name of first pet.
Okay. Yes. Grew up here in Washington, Missouri, and in this very home, this very house. And
Not this very room.
no, well, at some point, yeah.
I didn't realize you guys had lived here your whole lives
Yeah.
until I watched the home movies.
Oh, really?
I have never lived anywhere
This home
for
has seen many
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
like 25.
Literally,
or so
my
years at
crib
a
was
time.
right there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh. That fascinates me.
It drives me insane sometimes. It's
Yeah.
like my whole life is in one room.
And
Ah,
it
well.
has 0 windows.
Yeah. It is a metaphor.
But that's okay. We're not talking about you today, March.
True. What's wrong with you, Jordan?
So as a kid growing up, I was always just an anxious kid growing up. Just had anxiety about things. Like I remember vividly my first day of kindergarten. Just being completely beside myself because it was so big and blown up in my mind, and I was just so nervous and anxious about it. I was just always an anxious kid. I, like Mallory, grew up in church. We attended exclusively Baptist churches. So around the age of 10, my anxieties and self-esteem really kind of were at their boiling point. I grew up feeling like I was in a household that, I guess I should say, everyone before that time, everything in our house was just good. Like there was no, aside from just the normal, bickering between siblings once in a while, like we were just a pretty stereotypically happy family. There weren't many, huge issues going on or, anything just that wasn't trivial. And that's created for myself kind of an environment of when I feel anything, I don't want to disrupt this harmony that's going on, so I will therefore just keep it inside. And I think Mallory can speak to that too. Growing up, she felt very, very much the same. Let me add to, along with the anxiety and anorexia, this is hugely important that I should have added earlier. I always had obsessive tendencies growing up, and now that I can look back and see that I can see I did have obsessive tendencies. When this all started around age 14, those tendencies manifested themselves in obsessive compulsive disorder. So my experience with mental health is a comorbid diagnosis of anxiety, OCD, and anorexia. And they all impact one another constantly. For myself, I have always struggled, and this is completely in line with OCD. I have always had so much self-doubt growing up. And that's something that I can get into too when it comes to how the church impacted me. So growing up, I always was of the mindset that mom and dad are right. And I don't question that because I'm wrong and mom and dad are right. And life is scary. I was a fearful child. Everything about life was scary, especially things that were personally important to me. So when anything really for that matter came up, especially spiritual matters, food, anything that was of importance to me, mom and dad were the answer. Whatever they said was right, and I didn't question it. So when this all began happening, and there was a very obvious difference of perspective between myself and my mom, especially. My mom says you have to eat. I say, no, I don't want to. That's terrifying to me. You can't make me. I naturally just fell apart. I felt like I was free falling, like I had nothing to hold on to. I had no reality. It was just, all I knew was fear. And that was it. I just knew fear. And I didn't have anyone to go to either, because I always felt somewhat comfortable in the fact that, like, I have good parents. They want what's best for me. I know I have them, if something bad were to happen. But now it was this constant fight between myself and my parents. And I had a lot of my own liberties taken from me, a lot of them. It went so far as to actually get a legal document, a legal guardianship signed when I was 18, because they were so concerned I was going to make poor decisions for myself.
To provide more context, like, you were hospitalized a few times.
I was, yes. Yeah. That happened then. So
they had, like, legit concern.
They did, yeah, they did. And that was when that was finalized and that was put into effect. And for me, I struggled throughout all of this to have any level of dignity, because I have a very hard time. I can't even watch film and movies, like, and see depictions of, like, someone being stripped of their dignity or their autonomy. There's something in me that I get so angry, because I truly believe everyone deserves that. And that's how I felt at the time. Now, that is how I felt. But at the same time, I realized my parents were doing that out of legitimate concern. But it was a very, very difficult thing to go through. So when it got to the point where I just could no longer hold it in, I couldn't hide it anymore. It was just this huge change for not just myself, but our entire family dynamic. And that happened around the age of 14, when that all suddenly came out for me. several years prior to that, around the age of 10, which is what I was talking about before, I really started having feelings that I really could not suppress anymore. They were just really impacting me. And it had all to do with my self-esteem. Of course, anxiety for myself was always present throughout my whole life. So that was a factor, of course, as well, was the anxiety. And that all started coming out around the age of 14. And I fell fast and hard into an eating disorder, into anorexia. And understandably, none of us knew how the heck to deal with that. Because we just simply hadn't before. Our family really had not seen much when it came to issue of any kind, especially mental health. So that was a huge change for all of us. And it began to be handled in a way that was not the healthiest. But, everyone was trying to do what was, quote unquote, right. And it was a big learning experience for our entire family because we hadn't ever gone through anything like that. I, of course, have experiences with this issue, with my mental health, within the context of the church. And then also, it all blends together to some degree, to a large degree. So I have many stories I can tell that happened to me within the church, that even, not just within the church, but how for me personally, church impacted my mental health in a negative way and made me believe a lot of things about myself. And even more importantly, about God that simply weren't true. Mm-hmm. They just weren't true. Mm-hmm. They were lies. Mm-hmm. And I want to kind of, preface all of this by saying something that I find to have been an invaluable thing for myself to learn. And it took many years for me to learn that. You hear so often in the church, you hear this saying, check your heart. You hear that all the time. Mm-hmm. Check your heart. Mm-hmm. And you don't think much of it until something like what I experienced happens, because mental health is not a heart issue.
Right.
And that's so important to know.
And what do they mean when they say check your heart? What are you hearing?
The way I interpreted that to mean was check your heart. Examine your spiritual life, because if you were right with God, you wouldn't be having these issues. Because it was almost perceived as a mental issue of any kind is a heart issue. It means you're not right with God, because if you were,
some kind of sin,
you wouldn't be going through this. Mm-hmm. And it's simply not true. It's not true.
Yeah. So I'm wondering if you can lead into talking about like places mom and dad sent you to help, or things that you were learning at the time.
Yeah. When I was 15, I was admitted to it was an outpatient program in St. Louis. I spent a good bit there. It was probably over the course of a year. I did treatment there. It was a day program, so we would drive every day to St. Louis.
Monday through Friday.
Yep, every day. You know that full well. You waited.
At school. And like parks and stuff.
Yeah, yep. There was a lot of that, while I just went through some hard stuff. There's a lot there that that would be a totally separate episode to go into all the ins and outs of outpatient treatment, especially that for eating disorders. It is very, very much a unique kind of treatment, but it was not, to kind of sum it up, it was not a good experience. Typically when you're in a treatment setting like that, for any kind of mental illness, the people are there because they want to be. Now, eating disorder treatment is unique because a lot of the times it's not that way. And that's just the uniqueness of that mental area. Anyway, there were a lot of patients there who were not in a good mindset and not healthy to be around. Definitely not pro-recovery. So I ended up, unfortunately, leaving that treatment center worse off than I was before I got there. Mm-hmm. And that really, really kind of sent me into an even darker spiral. So that was my first experience in the therapy world.
Something specific, sorry to interrupt you, but like something specific about eating disorder treatments is you would use the word like competition a lot.
Yes. Yeah. And you don't really see that in any other, whether it be depression, you can name any kind of mental issue, and you really don't see that competition there in those other ones.
So for me that I don't know, what context the competition is happening. kind of describe that?
It's basically, if you want to put it simply, whoever is the thinnest is the best.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my.
And that's, I mean, it's
Or sickest, like.
It is, yes, yeah. There was one patient who, I mean, it was so bad. She would actually say in sessions, to me, winning means dying, because that means I was the sickest. And it was not a good, positive place to be around. Definitely not a place where any kind of progress regarding recovery could be achieved. And I was there every day for hours, and it really
makes me wonder why they do it that way. Like, surely they have to know. Like,
it was yeah, it's an unfortunate thing that accompanies eating disorders. And thankfully, my next experience in therapy was better as far as the environment went and the patients there. There's really not much you can do or say to make that competition less in the forefront of everything for people. If they come competitive, it's going to exist in some way or form in that setting amongst a lot of girls, women, and men also, I should add. This affects men as well.
Yeah.
Not as much by way of numbers and statistics, but this is not a woman's thing. I saw and met men who struggled just as much. So yes, the competition was, does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought that's what you meant, but it's just like so horrifying to imagine.
It is. Yeah. And it's a sad reality of this particular mental illness.
Yeah.
So that was not a good experience for me by any means. And then I left that program, and not long after, I was 16, so just the year after, I had been home for a little while after being discharged from that program.
How long were you in that program?
To be honest, I don't even recall. It wasn't
like forever.
It felt like forever, yeah, but it wasn't anywhere near as long as my next inpatient treatment center. I do think it was under a year. It had to have been.
Really?
A matter of months. Because, yeah, I was 15. And then by the time I was in my next center, I was 16. So it wasn't long, but it did feel longer. I remember distinctly when my parents told me they were sending me to this next treatment center. It was the day after Christmas, which was just awful, because Christmas is my favorite holiday, you know? Yeah, it was hard. And of course I was just devastated. And I mean, I had never been away from home ever. Especially states away. This place was in Arizona.
Yeah.
I had never even really been out of Missouri. And so I was just completely, I just fell apart. I was like, you can't do this to me. I don't know how to even process this.
Talk about scary, yeah.
It was
kid.
Terrifying, yeah. And I mean, our home life was just awful. It was, I mean, everything was so, the hostility going on, the yelling, the fighting constantly. It was a very hard place to be, but there was comfort in, I'm home. That familiarity.
Do you want to get into like why there was yelling?
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because they're like, I feel like they need more context.
Okay. Where would you want me to start? Okay.
Like, why was it hard at home?
So the stuff going on here that really led to treatment being pursued by my parents, wanting to admit me somewhere. So backing up quite a bit, my mother and I had always had a pretty codependent relationship, and I was her, I was the eldest child, I was born with a back condition when I was an infant. So for my mom, she was always tending to me. It was always, I was not, born completely healthy. So, there were some surgeries that I needed, and that really impacted the relationship between my mom and I, because she was, she very much cared about me and making sure I was okay. And that was, she was very involved. And as I grew up and my anxiety really started to impact my life, and in turn impact our relationship, that became even more unhealthy between her and I, because by the time that I really started struggling with anorexia, my mom was just so involved with making sure I had help and making sure I was healthy and okay and not going to die. because there was this urgency to it. I was not well. And so she really took the reins on that, and that became everything in our entire family unit was me, was Jordan. And for me, being in my shoes, I hated that so much, because I saw my sisters being, the word neglected is a very strong word. And I should say, I want to kind of preface all of this by saying my parents are the best parents out there. My parents are amazing. Ask me any day, I would say I am the most blessed person to have the parents I have. Mm-hmm. So whenever I talk about my parents, I do not want it to be heard that they were spiteful or wanted what happened to me to be my experience, because it wasn't. That was never their intention.
I mean, we have a great relationship with them now.
It's incredible. I mean,
God has done works on our family.
It's a miracle. Sure. Our family has been. I get goosebumps every time I think about how God has redeemed and restored our family from
like a miracle.
It is a miracle. Yeah. It's incredible. And the fact that we are now closer, I truly believe we're closer now than we would have been if we'd never experienced any hard times in our family unit. So I need to preface all of this by saying that, because that is hugely important.
I like how you just keep adding prefaces in.
Well, this is nearly 16 years worth of stuff. Yeah. So I apologize if this is somewhat disjointed, because there's a lot there.
It's a lot.
There is, yeah.
Give us your whole story in an hour.
Yeah. Tell me all of your deepest, darkest secrets. Yeah. So yes, my relationship with my mom especially was very strained, because of course I was pushing back, because recovery meant all of the things that I feared the most: eating, gaining weight, all of these things that are, that come with therapy and come with recovery. And I didn't want recovery. And recovery being forced onto me in some way was not helpful. So after my first therapy experience in the center in St. Louis, I flew out with my parents to Arizona and was admitted into an inpatient treatment facility. And I was there for over, I want to say 1.5 years I was there. And I came home once. The protocol was a 60-day inpatient treatment. And then your treatment team would reevaluate and see if they deemed, if you were deemed fit to step down into their outpatient facility, where they would then teach you how to kind of go back into normal life. Because when you're in treatment constantly, it becomes this, it's a different world. Let me just put it that way. It becomes
your life.
It becomes everything. Yeah. So when you're kind of thrown back into regular life, it's just like, it's so different.
Mm-hmm. It's like culture shock, probably.
It is, yeah. Well, it's definitely culture shock when you get there too, though. Yeah. So that experience I mentioned briefly before, the environment there was much more positive. The patients there that I was surrounded with were much more pro-recovery, if you want to use that word. Committed to recovery, which was very different. I had never been around that before. In my prior treatment experience was definitely not like that. That was good, having that. However, the problem for me was I never pursued treatment on my own. Mm-hmm. And that's hugely important to understand, because if you don't, it won't work. Mm. And that's just the way it is. Mm-hmm. It won't work. And I realized, my parents, they were terrified for me. So I understand where they were coming from. Yeah. It was to save me, to save my life. And it did save my physical life. I'm still here today in the flesh. I have not died.
Good job.
Thank you. Yes. But at the same time, emotionally and mentally, I was not healed. I wasn't doing it for me. I was doing it for my family. I was doing it for my church body, who every chance they got, they told me, we're praying for you. We're doing this. We're doing that. Like, get better, get better, get better. And it was from me. I understood that as pressure. Mm-hmm. And that was not helpful. Wow. That's not helpful for anyone. When they are going through a very personal thing, that was interpreted as an expectation. Mm-hmm. And that left no room for me wanting to figure out, what do I want for myself? What do I, what do I want for me? It was a constant fight between my illness and this part of me that wanted to be better for other people, not for me. Mm-hmm. because I was the oldest sister. I naturally have a desire to be a good role model for my younger sisters, and my relationship with my sisters had just ceased to exist because I was so overly concerned with being a bad example. I was so concerned with them falling into the pit of darkness that I had that I just completely, in my mind, I rationalized that I need to remove myself from them. I need to have no contact. I don't speak to them. Even when I was living at home, like I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy, but heaven forbid this ever happen to my sisters, ever. Because I adored my sisters. I wanted everything for them. And that's part of Mallory's story too, is that, that we were best friends, and she lost her best friend and I lost mine too. And that impacted both of us greatly and caused a huge rut between us. And Quinn was very young, but it caused one between her too. She was young and didn't really fully understand what was going on because of her age, but at the same time, I was equally just as concerned for her. So for myself, even being states away, I felt this just unexplainable pressure. It impacted my progress there because I wasn't there for me. And it really came as no shock to me that when I came home, I just fell right back into everything because I wasn't there for the right reason. It was a temporary keep Jordan alive tactic, approach to the whole thing, but it really didn't work. And that's the reason it didn't. So within our family unit, it was bad. I don't know another way of putting it. It was very bad.
I was just wondering, like, maybe we could give, like, an example of what a day looks like.
Okay.
Or something.
Yeah.
Just so. Because I've said stuff like that before. And I don't know. I think I would wonder if I was other people.
I'm wondering.
Okay.
Because, I only have one side of you guys.
Well, a typical day usually looks like everything surrounded meals. Because that was the hardest thing for me to accomplish. So the whole day just was surrounding, how do we get Jordan to eat today? Mom would start getting my breakfast ready. That was a whole production.
What was it usually?
And, oh gosh, it was always changing. It was up to the dietitian.
I remember bagels.
That was something at a point, yeah. Rice Krispies were there.
Rice Krispies or a bagel, and you measured out everything.
Yes, everything was measured.
3 times?
You
check it 3 times. You would ask Mom, and she would, like, do the ritual with you.
Yeah.
And when we say ritual, it's just, like, it's kind of what it sounds like.
It is exactly what it sounds like, yeah. And for someone who has never experienced what rituals are, this probably is something that's completely foreign.
Yeah, it kind of sounds crazy.
It does, but there is safety in it. There's a perceived sensation of safety in rituals, and that is what happened. That's what happened. It like I said, it was all comorbid, so OCD was constantly weaved into the anorexia, meaning for a typical anorexia patient, it looks like being hyper concerned with weight, hyper concerned with calories, and that's pretty much it if you want to, keep it simple. For myself, it was amplified even more so because OCD was present, meaning I was terrified of, when it was at its worst, I could almost not be in our house when my mother would cook because I was worried I would smell calories. I was worried touching things became a huge source of anxiety. At one point, I really was just barricaded in my room because I was so concerned with getting calories because gaining weight was my worst fear in the whole entire world because I knew how much self-hatred I had when I was whatever weight. Like that was where all of my worth was.
Right. And we were very aware of that because it was like, you do not go into Jordan's room. Don't touch Jordan's door.
It became a shrine.
Yeah. And then like, basically don't touch you because you're like terrified of
I was terrified.
Anything. Yeah. And so it was like just this very like we learned our rituals really quickly. It was debilitating. It was debilitating. It was kind of like, from our perspective, my perspective, I think it was like, kind of like, don't interact with you at all.
Yeah.
And then maybe you'll be okay.
Right. Right.
So just kind of like ignore your existence.
Yeah. My life at that point was nothing but fear. It was just constant.
Mm-hmm.
Constant. There was nothing else.
So yeah,
ever.
like after breakfast and everything, which took what, like an hour?
It took longer than that.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So like, Mom would be like, you would use the whole table.
Yep.
You like no one
that
could
was
be
a whole
at the table.
Yeah, the whole table had to be cleaned a certain way.
And you use the same spot at the table.
Yep.
And no one could sit in your chair.
Mm-hmm.
And then Quinn and I kind of like do school, I guess, in our room, like at my desk and stuff. And then Mom was like exhausted and getting ready for lunch with you. And then trying to like do school in between all that because we were homeschooled. Mm-hmm. And then I don't know, Quinn and I were just kind of on our own with that. And then Dad came home, and Mom, did she do dinner with you before our dinner, or?
To be honest, I don't even remember.
I don't
because
remember either.
For me, things were constantly changing over the course of this, because this is a span of years. Right. So I wasn't just doing this during all of these years. There was a point where I was on a completely liquid diet because that was easier, and eventually got to the point where I was just eating completely prepackaged foods because they were exact enough, because they have labels, like nothing fresh, because there's room for error there with calorie counting. And at some point I was doing it on my own and my parents weren't involved. That was when I got a little older. Now, I mean, this is spanning a very large period of time, so it's hard to kind of hone in on one time and kind of say that this is how it always was, because it wasn't. That is how it was kind of during kind of that time where we left off, between like getting home from the treatment center in Arizona and the time during that and my next treatment center, which was in Wisconsin. Yeah. So that was what a typical day looks like there.
So Jordan, you have some questions for us. You get to ask the question of the day. Okay. Yay. This is a great honor.
Okay, so am I asking
You're
one
welcome.
I'm still unclear. Oh, am I asking one question?
Yeah.
Okay.
To start.
Okay. Okay. My question is, what is one of your biggest pet peeves?
Only one.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's the challenge.
I was nice, and I didn't say, what is your biggest pet peeve?
Right.
So you don't have to pick just one. What is one of them? I think I know one of Mallory's. I'm curious what Mallory's answer is.
You have one?
I do. I have one that is usually the first one I think of, because it's like one of the only things that will actually make me mad enough to yell at other people's children.
Do tell.
It is the abuse or mistreatment of animals. Just makes the hair stand up on the back of my neck. And I have a high standard for proper treatment of animals because of my background. And so, like, the things that some kids do is probably not a big deal. But it just... Ooh, I'm sweating right now just thinking about it, you know? Just... If my birds are out, if I let my turkeys out or whatever, and a kid starts chasing them, and as regularly happens, any little kid... you know, is gonna just naturally take off after these turkeys. My nephews do it when they come over. My nieces and nephews, when they come over, they'll do it. And I love all of these kids, you know? But it's just like, I feel way more protective of these animals than I think maybe I did of my own children. Because the animals can't talk, you know, and it's my job to take care of them. Aww. And I've seen kids that, like, what?
You speak for the turkeys.
I speak for the turkeys. And they're scared. Please don't chase them. Don't throw stuff at them or whatever. And I've seen, like, at the market, there have been, like, toads or snakes or whatever outside the market. And I've caught, like, customers' kids holding them wrong and squeezing them or whatever. And I will yell at these strangers' children just reflexively, you know? And later I'll walk away and I'll be like, oh my gosh, like, you can't yell at somebody else's kid. What are you doing? And I just,
yes, you can.
My brain shuts off.
I think you think you
like,
can.
How dare you?
You would be like, if this was a thing, you could be like animal lawyer.
Yes.
Represent.
I would make a great animal lawyer because I know how they should be treated.
Your Honor, I'm here to represent Mr. Turkey.
Requesting $1 million in emotional damages done. We think that's being generous.
Missed opportunity.
He's molting. He's so stressed. Anyway, that's my biggest pet peeve.
It's literally about
It's
your
a
pets.
pet peeve.
Oh.
You drunk
Hilarious.
Funny.
Now I need to calm down while you discuss yours, Marge.
My go-to answer is stupid people.
Okay. Just leave
So
it
that's
at that.
most people.
Okay.
Elaborate. Now I'm
How would
exploring.
you define stupid in this case? Oh.
Illogical people.
Mhm.
If someone has an answer for something and I ask them to explain their answer and they can't, or they're like, I don't know, it's just cause. I hate that. I hate that so much. Like, mom and dad used to say that to me. If they were to say, like, because I said so or something, it's like, that is not a reason. That's a non-reason, and that is stupid. Therefore, I am peeved.
You're peeved.
I'm peeved. The poltergeist. I will haunt you in your sleep.
See, I thought you were going to say leaving soap bubbles in the sink.
Oh my gosh.
That's annoying.
Don't get me started.
She would be so upset if you come out of the bathroom and leave soap bubbles in the sink.
I'm still so
Sit down.
upset. It causes like a visceral reaction. I hate bubbles. And soap in general, but also mainly bubbles. Like,
I know what I'm not getting you for your next birthday. The big old tub of those bubbles. And a bubble machine. You can put it in your room.
There's some glitter in there. Like
Ooh,
glitter in the
sparkly
bubbles. The bubble pops and it glitter puffs up everywhere. She's like, she's having a reaction right now.
She is. We're triggering Marge. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, not sorry. I love learning new things.
Like, it makes me... Oh, that and... Like, these two things in particular make me, like, really angry. Like, I want to kill something.
Getting scared now.
Bubbles and country music.
Huh.
Especially, like, in a store or something, and it's like, or whatever they're singing, and it's like, I want to kill something. Like, I would feel okay murdering this person singing right now.
Wow.
Because it makes my soul so angry.
You know why? Like, were you hurt by country music at some point in your life?
I don't think country music is objectively good. Because it's like people whining about tractors and beer and girls and...
That is a common theme.
It's like, but like, it's the tone. And it's like, I'm telling a really deep story about my childhood, about when Mama used to come home and I had a cow and it meant a lot to me. And it's like, stupid people. So I might have a pride problem, but they also might have a mental problem because they're not choosing to use their brain. And I just think that the world would be a better place without them.
Wow. Is that even still a pet peeve?
I don't know.
That might be taking it to another level.
This wasn't supposed to be. I thought this was a lighthearted question to ask.
Got dark.
No!
We had Lisa talking about the killing of animals. Mallory's now
Not
mentioned killing too.
Yeah, the chasing of animals.
Well, just animal mistreatment.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just
animal
lead to the
abuse.
killing.
Man,
Yeah.
I should have gone a
And
different
the death
route.
of country music.
This explains your reaction when I said that I had a crush on Randy Travis as a youth.
Yeah.
I had like the opposite exposure to country music. My grandma would have us over as kids and she'd be like, man, every meal was just elaborate and delicious. And she'd be in the kitchen making these meals and Randy Travis would be on the radio twanging along, you know, and everything would just feel right, you know. I felt loved and safe and secure and anticipating this mac and cheese that was like made from the remnants of baby angels, you know. It was just the best thing ever. And
Wrong.
that's why I hear like old country, like Randy Travis and Alan Jackson and them, and I'm just like transported to a better time.
Just nostalgia.
Yeah.
Well, you're just wrong.
I am, clearly.
Oh,
I will change my ways.
I'm glad it's redeemable, I guess. I've come to that place.
I mean,
I'm still kind of bitter that it is redeemable.
Yeah.
So I don't want it to be. I think
You want me to make you a playlist of the good country music?
I would love that.
For exposure therapy?
I would love that so
Well,
much.
well, maybe accompany that with like a punching bag too,
Right.
Just in case.
So you can just work out
Just
the
in
range
case.
as it happens.
There you go.
That would actually maybe help me get anger out.
Yeah.
I asked Quinn how to do
I
that
could
the other
see
day.
you doing a punching bag.
Because I just, like, internalize everything.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm angry, I kind of look like this.
But you also look like that.
A lot of the time.
Yeah. If I'm emotional, I kind of look like this.
That's how you looked your whole life.
Yeah. I need one of those shirts with my face on it. Angry, happy, sad.
Yeah.
Annoyed.
That'd be
So-
pretty funny.
It's the Far Side, the Irish setter face.
Oh, yeah.
Repeatedly. Anyway, that was a good
Anyway.
question. I liked that question.
That was what is the thing I hate the most? Because I go big or go home.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, what's your biggest pet peeve?
Oh, I have many, but one that I can definitely say easily is when people use lazy grammar. Like, I could give a few examples.
What do mean?
Exactly. What
I use more word if you word do trick.
Oh my. See, I asked for this. I knew this was coming.
This is what you signed up for.
I kind of have a cringe reaction, like a physical reaction when people say things like, people say the word anyways. Anyways isn't a word. Yeah, another one is I could care less. Really, how much less could you care? It's I couldn't care less. And the other one,
I could care less.
but people say that all when they say it, they say I could care less.
Absolutely.
I know, but they're like,
Yeah. And then
I
finally,
care less,
one
but
that
I
makes
could
no
care
sense
less.
to me is when people say,
oh, I have one.
itch it. No, you scratch.
Scratch.
Oh.
You
The
don't.
itch is the noun.
Itch is not a verb.
But I feel that way about I have a temperature. When people say,
Temperature.
"Oh, I have a temperature," like they have what they actually have is a fever.
Right. Everyone has a temperature.
has a temperature.
Yes. Lazy grammar.
Yeah.
This is what irks me.
I get that.
Yes.
Oh, like the sun's out today.
Oh.
Like,
Well,
It's
isn't it always?
Yeah.
it's
I mean, it's
always
up there.
out.
I guess,
Mhm.
you know,
Oh, the
clouds
sun's out.
could affect that. Mine, so along those lines, the one that gets me, and Gwen will tell you, at the market we have boxes and bags that are stamped and printed with the phrase, tree ripened peaches. There's no hyphen. And it reads, without the hyphen, it reads like a newspaper headline. Like this tree did the action of ripened the peaches.
Yes.
And what they want is for tree ripened to describe the peaches.
As
there
an
should
adjective.
be a hyphen, right?
It's an adjective.
2 words used together as an adjective needs a hyphen.
Yes.
Because without it, it's a newspaper headline.
But I mean,
and I
like-
want to go on every one of them and add the hyphen. Because
Mhm.
I appreciate clear. I know that this podcast to this point has proven otherwise, but I appreciate clear communication, clear and effective communication.
And I think that's completely why it bothers me, because words
mean something.
Words should be respected.
Nah.
The true definition of words should be respected. And I see people left and right,
Just throwing all the rules
misrepresenting
out the
and
window.
misusing words. I know these are these are trivial, things, but I mean, not really. But, like people do a lot, more damage than, saying I could care less, I guess. Yeah. Yeah. So that's probably where my peeveness, or whatever you called it, comes from.
Where your peeves get pet.
Where they're pet to.
I just had an
don't
image.
know.
I don't know what a peeve is, but I pictured it
Yeah.
getting pet. So
Yeah.
That's a pet peeve.
it's weird.
You're petting your... I don't know. That sounds weird.
Things got very bad in our family. It went so far as my parents actually threatening to kick me out of the house because we were falling apart, and it was just stuff you see in movies, like the typical depiction of a dysfunctional family. We were that. We all, like Mallory said, we all had our roles. That was it. That was every day.
I would say it wasn't typical to anything I'd ever seen before, because it was so, traumatic.
It was extreme.
But, I remember getting out of the shower one night, and, Antoinette had come over, and, do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. She was, trying to get you, basically.
Yeah, there was a point where I was sent to live with my aunt. I spent time at two of my aunt's houses because my parents just, it got to the point where we were like hitting walls and there was a hole in the wall, and my mom was becoming unhinged.
Yeah.
And that was a very scary thing to witness. Everyone
to some degree.
Yeah, it was a very hostile place to be. I keep trying to find a word that's strong enough, and none of them fully.
It was traumatic. Yeah. It was like, I remember, like, I came out of the shower, I was just in a towel, and like, she was like, "Hi, Mallory, like, would you be able to help me with your sister?"
Yeah,
and I was like, "Yeah, let me get dressed real quick." And so I got dressed and helped
you and aunt,
helped her get you into the van.
You
and then I held the door shut while she backed out of our driveway.
Yeah, like while I pounded on it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Because like mom and dad couldn't do it anymore, and I was like, "Yeah, I can do that." It's like just totally desensitized to it all.
I can still close my eyes and vividly see that. Vividly see.
Oh yeah, I can
the
see
lack of
face.
Emotion on Mallory's face, and I was just, that broke me. That I was heartbroken to see the emptiness in you, and just the fact that it had gotten that bad. And all I ever wanted was for mom and dad to leave me alone, to not pull me to let me suffer on my own. And the fact that I couldn't have my own struggles without it impacting the people I love most in the entire world was devastating for me. And it's, there really aren't words to really kind of...
I have a question, and I don't know if you have an answer to this or if you want to answer it or if we'll even keep it, but just listening to you saying how unhelpful a lot of this was, do you now, looking back, do you know what would have been helpful? Like, what could your parents have done that would have helped? Because, I'm sitting here as a parent trying to comprehend what in the crap I would have done. Mm-hmm. I have no idea. Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting here listening to you describe, I would have done everything unhelpful, apparently. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. I mean, there might be people listening that need to know. Yeah. If you have any answer to that.
I don't believe there's a perfect answer in any scenario, really.
Right. It's kind of what this whole thing's about.
Right, exactly. And for us, that was a huge learning experience, and it was hell. For lack of a better word, we were living hell every day. And thinking back, I can't really, there are certain things I could think of that would have made it better. But there is nothing that would have made it, completely smooth sailing. Mm-hmm. I think if I were to actually kind of nail down one thing that I believe, having been the person who was struggling, if there was one thing I could nail down and say that would have been most helpful for me, it would have definitely been being asked, being part of the plan. And I never was, ever. I was just told what was going to be done with me, and I was made to do it. I didn't have a say in anything. And I was a kid. So yeah, my parents did have the final say. But for myself, I truly think that if I had been given a chance to speak up and contribute to what I felt I needed, that would have made a big difference. I
mean, you did. I remember you speaking up and
well, I did. Like I kicked and screamed.
Yeah. And it was not received.
Exactly.
And because the more it was not received,
yes,
it was like it was just everything kept getting like like who can be the louder voice?
Right.
Kinda,
and like, I was outnumbered. I was grossly outnumbered, and for myself, the problem was, and the reason it didn't work, the reason me speaking up didn't work was because from my parents' perspective, everything that came out of my mouth was disordered. Jordan wasn't in there. So there's no amount of screaming or nothing I could say could get through to them. It wasn't received. It wasn't, because I was sick, and everything therefore that I said or felt or believed or whatever, etc., was unhealthy. And for my parents, I'm sure they could speak a lot to, they were getting a lot of counsel at the same time from many people, many quote unquote licensed professionals. And they were also receiving a lot of counsel within the church. Now, that is something I never really witnessed. That was something that they were getting. So
they were pretty private about it.
They very, our family was very private. And that was a huge issue as well.
Yeah. That
things weren't talked about.
Literally, like, you were telling me stories
yes.
like a month ago or something. I had no clue that happened. No.
Yeah. It was bad. And that OCD component of it really made it worse than any of us could have ever even imagined.
Oh, another thing in the day in the life, at nighttime specifically, like Dad would come home and get showered, and then it was just like exhaustion from our parents basically, and Dad had just worked like a laborious job all day, and then he comes home and it's like Mom's a mess and you're a mess, and because it's like exhaustion, you're running on fumes, and then. So Quinn and I would be like in our room, because this was our room, and then it would just like dinner would happen for you basically, and it would just be like hostility and people, like the three of you trying to work things out basically through yelling. It was a lot of yelling, and I remember being in here like with my earbuds in, trying to like crank up the calming music, which is kind of like not calming at all. But like, so anyway, I think that's interesting with, yeah, I can cut this too, but because I don't want to make this about me. But at nighttime I get anxious still, for like no reason, but it is for I think a reason, because it's like I'm like. Waiting for that to happen. And when I see movies or hear babies cry, or hear or I'm in like a restaurant and there's like a child screaming or something, it's just like everything comes back all of a sudden. So it's like I just get that like heartbeat, But anyway, like the nighttime, it was not like everything settled down. It was like everything ramped up, and then it was like
just preparing for the next day of the same thing.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I want to add that I truly think the reason this all started, it kept getting progressively worse, was because at the onset of all of this, when I first started to struggle around 14, I didn't want any help. I didn't want my parents to be involved. I was very much like, just leave me, this is my thing. Just leave me alone. Like, I'm fine. Leave me alone. Don't get involved. Like, I don't want you to get involved. I don't want you to have any part of this hurt. This is mine. Just let me hurt. I don't want you to hurt. But my parents, they refused. They refused. They would not be involved. They had to be involved, and they did everything they could to be involved. And what I realized now looking back that I was learning through that, what I began to believe was that I couldn't be trusted. So that's when that codependency really just shot up. And it got to the point where everything was so bad in our family, because I truly believed if I prepared my meals, I'd do it wrong. I would accidentally miscalculate and eat more and all these things. So like, oh my gosh, like Mom has to help me with this. Mom has to, or I'll do it wrong. And that's what I ended up believing. I didn't used to believe that, but because there was this like insistence from my parents that we're taking over, that is what in my mind that meant. It meant I can't be trusted to do any of these things. I can't do math. I can't do even the most basic things. Like, I can't feed myself because I'll do it wrong. And that is why everything got so bad, because what my parents were doing, their involvement was teaching me something, was causing me to believe something that wasn't true. But I believed it in full force. And it got so bad. I mean, I couldn't even smell. I was holding my breath in my room because I could smell casserole coming through the vents. My door was shut. I was underneath my blankets, so terrified. There was a point where I wouldn't swallow my own saliva because I was worried there were calories in my saliva. It was just, these were things that are, people would hear and think, wow, that's insane. Because it has no basis in reality. It does not. But that really doesn't matter when you are so scared that is your reality.
Yeah.
And it's impacting every avenue of your life. Mm. And for me, one of the hugest things that has been freeing for me is discovering that I can trust myself. Mm. And I don't need mom and dad, and that was never, I'm certain that is never what my parents wanted me to believe in them being so overly involved. But unfortunately, it just was. It was a byproduct of it. That is what ended up happening, regardless of intention. So that was kind of, I kind of hesitate to use the word rock bottom because I feel like our rock bottom was kind of constant. There was really not one moment where I can really pinpoint as the worst moment. It kind of all was. So it got very bad. And I ended up going to my third treatment center in Wisconsin. I was admitted to the eating disorder ward first. And my OCD was so severe that they ended up having to relocate me to the OCD center. But before I could actually be admitted there, I had to go into the actual mental hospital where there was a nursing staff because I had an NG tube, which was a tube that went up through my nose into my stomach. I had NG tubes at every single center. But this one, I had to actually, since I wasn't in the eating disorder ward anymore, I had to go to the actual mental hospital and be admitted there inpatient because the staff at the OCD center wasn't equipped to do that. So I spent a month there just being fed through a tube and gaining the weight the staff deemed I needed until I could move to the OCD place. So that was about a month-long thing of, I was alone every day in my own little room. I colored. I came out every once in a while. It was terrifying to be in a mental ward because you're around a lot of people struggling with, various things. They take things from you. You're just kind of, regardless of if it's true or not, you just kind of fear for your safety because you really don't know who you're around. And there is this misconception of what a mental hospital is. It's not an asylum. It's not, a bunch of crazies running around wanting to kill each other. That's a huge misconception. But that whole societal kind of perception I had just naturally had because it's kind of the way society portrays that. It really impacted me there. But then once I was in, I was like, these people are just hurting people. He has a drug addiction. Okay. He's getting help for it. He's not insane. He's no different than anyone else that I know on the street. And that was, something that was so incredible to learn and to see, that we're all the same. Mm-hmm. We all have our stuff, but we're all the same. So I spent about a month there and then I moved to the OCD center and, it was there that I met some really, really wonderful people. One of them especially, who is, I consider a dearest friend. Haven't seen her in 10 years, but I can still talk to her and it's like not a day has passed. Thankful for her friendship. That was a hard treatment center to be in, because I was, forced to face my fears every day in the form of ERP, exposure and response prevention, which is basically, you create a hierarchy of things that make you uncomfortable and cause you anxiety. You start at the lowest and you literally do them. And as you become, the term they'll use is habituated to it, where it causes you doesn't cause you as much anxiety before, and it's manageable, you then move up on your hierarchy. And you tackle that. So, again, I was not in this treatment center for me. I was not doing it for me. So, it was helpful to some degree, because I was facing my fears and I was seeing that, they don't happen. But at the same time, there was the anorexia component. I was being made to gain weight at the same time, something that I didn't want to happen, something that caused me a huge amount of stress. So there were all of these different components happening simultaneously that caused the experience to not be as good as it could have been. And it all kind of, at the same time, kind of boiled down to I wasn't there for me. And that made the difference. I was there to come back home and be better. So our family could be better. Because I never, in all of my experience in treatment, I never felt like the reason I was there was to get better for me. It was to get better so I could come home and our home life could be better. So everyone else could be better. And so I didn't recover. I didn't. And because that's not how it works. If you're in it for anyone else, it's not going to work. Not saying I didn't learn things. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about therapeutic approaches. I learned a lot about coping mechanisms. I learned all of those, therapeutic terms, and I can, to this day, still very much speak to that.
I think you should have an honorary degree.
So that was, that was my last, to this day, that was my last experience in therapy. I came home and, that was it. Because by then I was, I believe, just newly 19 when I got back from that place. And by then my parents were that was an interesting time because it was a very gradual transition. And my parents would have to speak for this, but things weren't the same. My parents stepped back. And I don't know if that was something that they purposely decided to do.
Mm-hmm. Or if they were just exhausted.
They stepped back.
Yeah.
And that was
probably
when...
both of it.
I would think. I don't know if they were getting counsel at the same time. I know that throughout all of this, my parents were meeting with pastors. They were talking with people, trying to get counsel. I don't know all the avenues they took, but I knew that they were at some point meeting with pastors and whatever. They were meeting with, they met with some licensed professionals too. They were always part of, they were always in the loop on the professionals I was working with, the people I was working with in all of the centers I was at. Very, very involved. So I would say I'm pretty certain that the counsel, if they were to have gotten any that would have led them to step back, it would have been from a professional, from someone in the mental health world. That would be my guess.
Yeah, like a clinical setting.
Right, if that wasn't totally just their decision. I don't know. I'm not sure. But things started to change. I was given more freedom to take care of, my stuff. And I truly think that my mom really just got to a breaking point where she realized I can't be Jordan's savior. And that, my mom, I don't want to speak for her, but I know that for both of us, that was the beginning of a very healing, of healing for both of us. Because now my mom and I are, I can't even put into words how different the relationship between my mom and I is now. We're friends. And that's all I ever wanted in my entire life, was to just have a friend in my mother.
I mean, that's what she wanted too.
That's what she wanted too. And for so long we did it wrong. And we thought that what we were doing was going to make that happen. We did not know what boundaries were. And my mother...
Lisa and I didn't either.
Well,
I'm still learning.
Still learning boundaries.
Well, my mom, of course, it came from a place of concern. So she was so involved, overly involved. And in her being overly involved, that to me was interpreted as, oh gosh, like, I can't be trusted. I need mom. I need mom all the time for everything. And, that was, very unhealthy because we didn't. And we learning how to be responsible for the things that we should have been responsible for, and not taking, for my mom, that meant, not for letting go of some things, stepping back and letting me kind of realize I can do this. That was, for her, that's what that looked like. For me, it looked like, I can trust myself. And, I still struggle with that on the daily, because that is innately part of the OCD I struggle with, is the self-doubt. Which is very ironic, because in and of itself, outside of my anxieties, I'm an incredibly confident person. But when it comes to things that make me nervous, or that have any basis or cause me any level of fear, that's kind of where my mind goes immediately. It's like that carved out rut in my mind that says, I'm scared. Who do I go to help me, to tell me what is real? And that is still something I really struggle with, trusting that I can answer that for myself. So that was a turning point for our family. And that was very gradual, I might add, too. After I got home from my last treatment center, it was very gradual, like over the course of years, where I kind of started to do things on my own, and eventually got to the point where I was preparing my meals on my own, eating them on my own. And that was huge, considering where it had been before. And I thank God that my parents stepped back, because that wouldn't have happened. I would not have just come out of that had they been like, we're not doing this anymore. And that was terrifying. And that in and of itself caused, like, I pushed back when they stepped back. I pushed back at that point, because at that point I fully believed, no, you can't. Like, I can't eat if you go away, because you've been helping me eat for years, and you're the one who does it right. I can't do it. I'm completely incapable. So there was a lot of pushback on my part at that point, because I was at the point where, gosh, I truly believed that I couldn't do this without mom. But I couldn't force her into doing it. So she did step back, and I was made to do it on my own. And I did. And I learned how to do that. And that for me was incredibly freeing. I started to have that independence that I always wanted. And that was what I wanted back at the onset at 14 years of age, when it ended up not being handled in that direction. Became codependent, and now I had to learn how to be independent. And that was a huge learning process. And, it took a very long time. And there was a lot of ups and downs to that. But I was at the point where I was doing mostly everything on my own. And that was huge for our family, considering where we had been. So that is kind of my personal story as far as within the scope of our home that I can give in a nutshell, because there's much more there, but we could be here all day. Yeah. All week.
I was just gonna mention, like, when you were getting more independent, like, you went and got a job, and like, and then eventually you went to college, and like, that was huge, because we never thought you would do those things for yourself, because you were so fixated on doing something perfectly, or getting 100% or getting an A.
Yeah,
which, like, to be fair, like, you did struggle with that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but you did the thing, though.
Mm-hmm.
And we were all, like, amazed watching you being able to live.
Mm-hmm.
Still, you're, I don't know, just like a baby bird, like, learning to fly, you know? Like, oh, she's doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, I don't know, it something, like, locked into place then. It was like, oh, like, this is what maybe more of a functional family would look like.
And it's something that I had always wanted, but I never felt really allowed to do it. And I believed that I wasn't trustworthy enough to be independent. So finally, when I was given the shot to be, it's like, oh yeah, like, this is what I wanted all along, and I can do this.
This is mental health, not mental illness per se. And I think they're very, like, enmeshed, but it's also, there is a difference between, like, mental illness or mental disorders has been what you've been talking about. But then in regards to, like, deconstructing how church views mental health or stigma associated with that.
I mean, mental illness is totally seen as a bad word too, though.
Yeah.
You know, it's viewed as a
mental,
failure.
just mental is bad.
The thing mental, like,
negative
it shouldn't
connotation.
even need
Right.
addressing because your spiritual life should take care of all that, right?
Yeah.
So.
And that goes back to the whole thing I said about it's not a heart issue.
That's a lot. Thank you for sharing all of that.
Of course.
Yeah.
It's kind of just a tiny bit of everything, but yeah.
Yeah.
I was happy to share.
We really appreciate it. We appreciate it so much that we're going to have you on again next week. So you're welcome.
I'm sorry. I was going to say, we're going to call this part 1. Mental illness is not a bad word. Because that whole side of the mental aspect is also kind of treated similarly to mental health. And so I feel like you did a really good job of just describing your experience. But like I said, there's so much more. So we're going to give you that time to explain, like, the
repercussions.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The repercussions of your experience. And I wasn't fully planned on what I was going to say here. Sometimes I just start talking. Anyway, we're gonna let you expand on that.
I can't expand. I have much to expand on. So.
Okay.
Sometimes I just start a sentence and I don't really know where it's going. It just finds me along the way.
It's an adventure.
Yeah. Every time. Okay.
Always remember.
No matter what.
No matter how hard. No matter
where or how or what you're doing.
Or who you are. Never.
Under any circumstances. Anyway, thank you, Jordan, for trusting us with your story.
Yeah.
And for being willing to put up with our shenanigans.
You didn't finish the sentence. This is bothering my grammar.
That's because we finished it.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, that's all we get. It's from The Office. We were quoting Michael.
No, sometimes we quote The Office.
Yeah, I should have known.
Yeah.
I listen to the podcast every week. I should have known. Also, sometimes
when we very starkly start making less sense than normal. It's almost always because we're quoting The Office.
Okay.
And not because we're pulling stuff out of our butts.
Yep. Okay. That is good to know. I will take that knowledge with me.
Yeah. Just blame The Office.
Okay.
If you're ever listening and you're like, wow, what a hot mess.
Got it.
That's why.
Got it.
That's a good one, Lisa. I want to save the show.
Yeah. That's what I'm here for.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Mallory is totally the best.